Right, so Jeremy Corbyn has gone after Suella Braverman for entertaining letting a known anti-Semite and neo-Nazi fascist into the country to speak at a public event, no less. But sure, it's Corbyn that's the anti-Semite and wrong, isn't it? Now, we're supposed to keep undesirables out, right? Take back control of our borders and all of that. So in what way was it acceptable that the individual in question was allowed to enter the country but not only do that, but attend a rally frequented by other elements of the far right to organise and foment their disgusting views by coming in as a speaker, no less, at said event? Why are such events even permitted? I thought there were new police laws on ne'er-do-wells assembling in public, or is that only for the rotten lefties? Also, where is the news coverage of all of this? Or is it not newsworthy enough, and as it is Corbyn being accused of being the racist, rather than him quite correctly pointing it out in others? Right, so what's the story here then, Damo? Well, Jeremy Corbyn has written an open letter to Suella Braverman because this is her failure, yes again. It's like a daily dose of what has she screwed up now this week, isn't it? As the far-right Spanish extremist Isabella Peralta has been granted entry to the UK in order to attend a rally in Preston. The rally is a commemoration of, or was a commemoration of all people, Oswald Mosley, the once upon a time leader of the British Union of Fascists, whose connection to Corbyn's family, and is arguably the best known story of the BUF, is the drubbing they got in trying to march down Cable Street in 1936, the so-called Battle of Cable Street, where the fascists tried to march through a mainly Jewish area, helped by the police, yet the protesters won the day and forced the march to be abandoned, where amongst those stood opposed to Mosley's sorry bunch happened to be Corbyn's own mother. The rally in Preston was organised by magazine Heritage and Destiny, which sounds rather innocent, doesn't it? Something that might feature on Country File, perhaps, but I doubt that it would, since, in its own words, it covers opinions based on racial nationalism, defined as an ideology that seeks to preserve racial purity. I don't think I need to describe it more than that, do I? So, little wonder they organised something to commemorate a man like Mosley, in which case, perhaps. At any rate, the rally in Preston went ahead, with Peralta as a speaker, along with other guests from across the hard right spectrum, from the BNP to Patriotic Alternative to the National Front. Peralta herself, as Corbyn noted, has been reprimanded on numerous occasions for her conduct up until now. In March 2022, she was detained at Frankfurt Airport for the contents of her suitcase, which included a swastika, neo-Nazi propaganda leaflets, and even a copy of Mein Kampf. She got herself banned from Germany over that, unsurprisingly, but we let her in here. In February 2021, she was recorded addressing a crowd in Madrid saying, "The enemy will always be the same, although with different masks, the Jew," and repeatedly saying Jews are the problem. So how did she get here, if she's so rancid and offensive in her views? Well, according to some unverified reports, it has to be said, she was indeed held up by Border Force doing their job, clearly questioning why such an awful individual was here. I would like to think these reports are true, but we don't have certainty on that. However, even if they are true, she still got let through, and that then comes to the Home Secretary Braverman to provide an explanation as to what the heck happened that Peralta should have been permitted entry. Well, for as much as magazines like Heritage and Destiny welcome neo-Nazis, there are equal and opposite publications opposed to them, and one example of such is Searchlight magazine, who call out far-right figures, expose what they do, and who organised a counter-demonstration to oppose the fascists. And they had this to say of Braverman in light of this rally. Suella Braverman has some explaining to do. Last weekend, a notorious Spanish neo-Nazi, Isabella Peralta, was allowed into the UK to speak at a Nazi gathering in Preston. She is banned from entering Germany because of her extreme views. She was allowed to enter the UK to address the annual gathering organised by the neo-Nazi magazine and website Heritage and Destiny. If she is too extreme for Germany, why was she allowed to enter the UK? Over to you, Suella Braverman. Over to her indeed. Oh, well, she's in the US away from all of this at the minute, isn't she? Peddling her views on ditching the Human Rights Convention. Would hardly have been out of place at a rally with views like that, in my opinion. But she needs to be held accountable for what's happened here upon her return, for sure. And certainly she will, by way of Corbyn's open letter, which many of us have read, and he's asking all the right questions of her. I am appalled that someone renowned for such vile anti-Semitic hate speech was permitted entry to this country to propagate her hateful ideology. Peralta's visit comes at a time when the far right are marching heavily into the political mainstream, emboldened by a government that speaks of invasions on our south coast. Far-right groups have staged repeated rallies in Dover and targeted hotels housing refugees. Your government is determined to turn away desperate people fleeing war and persecution, but is seemingly unable or unwilling to prevent renowned fascists from being welcomed with open arms. I implore you to take the threat of far-right extremism seriously and reflect on your own dehumanising rhetoric that has fuelled anger and hatred towards migrant communities across the country. And that really does hammer the most salient point home here. Where Braverman seeks to criminalise and deport people fleeing goodness knows what, she's for some reason apparently had no problem allowing a fascist into the UK to address a rally of people who believe in things like ethnic cleansing and white supremacy. And as someone who isn't white, it boggles my mind that Braverman possibly can't see the wood for the trees in this. If she doesn't act to prevent another similar incident, because ultimately, if fascism were to ever take hold in the UK, and I don't think it would, I think most of us would always rise up to oppose it. If ever another Battle of Cable Street scenario were to crop up, we would be there once more to face it down, would we not? But if it did, does Braverman think that just because she's rabidly right-wing herself that she wouldn't be targeted too? I would like to think this entire incident is a result of her incompetence rather than any intent on her part. I really, truly don't want to believe even this crop of Tories are so far gone as that. But she needs to hold her hands up to say this shouldn't have happened and put measures in place to ensure it can never happen again, that there is better vetting of who comes into this country via typical routes, especially when she is so vociferous in preventing others coming here. And if she doesn't, then we can only presume she was potentially somehow involved in allowing this notoriously awful person into the UK, and we deserve all the global condemnation, not least from Germany, that comes with that whilst people like Braverman remain in their posts. Do you think she was involved? Do you think it more incompetence than intent? Would you join a rally to face these people down if they came marching down the street towards you? Give me your thoughts on this story in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing with my voice as well. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where, with Keir Starmer referring to the families of those coming by small boats as terrorists, is Labour any better than Braverman and the Tories on this fascistic language towards refugees? And I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.